Welcome.
Hello and welcome to OzLoL Podcast episode 84. My name is Colossus. This week we're going to be talking about the International Wildcard Invitational and the performance of the Chief Esports Club at said event. And we're going to probably talk about other random stuff now that there's no more patch notes. Yes! Up in the hizzy. So patch 5.8 will be out next week, presumably. And so we will be talking about that next week. This week we're going to talk about RWCI. And to help me with that, I've got Stephen Garstone.
I'll try to help all I can.
We've got Scott Ranconius Rankin.
I prefer the name Scat now.
Okay, fine.
No.
Are you the Scat Man? Shibba-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that just takes me back to like high school in such the biggest possible way. Oh, man. I'm amazed you even knew it, because you're younger than I'm an old one.
It was on a So Fresh album, and my family was very into So Fresh.
Wow,
I have no
okay.
idea why it was on a So Fresh album, but it was.
Yeah, man.
So.
It was a big song back in the day.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was huge. As, you know, anyway, weird pop songs go. And alas, Victor cannot be here because he's off, I don't know, engaged in piracy on the high seas or, I don't know, something like that. His internet got destroyed by those... He downloaded Dallas Buyers Club and now they've killed his internet or something. I don't know.
He's engaged in the European vodka trade.
Yeah, that's it. I actually saw that there's actually competitive vaping. You know, vaping like the e-cigarettes? There's like competitive vaping. They try to blow the biggest thing of... Well, it's not smoke because it's not... Anyway, that was funny. Maybe he's involved in that. Anyway, basically his internet is dead, so he can't be with us.
There is competitive vaping.
Only the Lord knows the answer to that question every single week.
I receive all of my fantastic internet updates thanks to me having now subscribed to Lee Harridge's feed on Facebook.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting stuff that you post there quite regularly. So if any of our viewers are actually interested in stuff like that, don't forget to give him an ad on Facebook because there is very he has a very good internet reach and understands a lot of like the political issues. But not just that, it goes into monetary issues with the socioeconomics, a bunch of stuff like that.
Oh, shucks. Somebody said something nice about me. Most people just think it's probably boring, but...
Well, I like stuff that, like, the reason I'm here is that I like generating discussion and debate, but healthy discussion and debate, and that's what it sort of generates, so...
There you go. Anyway, well, let's do some quick bit of show news. So, of course, we're still doing... the iTunes review competition. I actually forgot to check, and if I check now, my iTunes will block out the things. I can't check right now. We had 20 reviews. We're need to get to 30 by next week. And then we'll give away $10 an RP. And to go in the draw, all you need to do is give us a review on iTunes or on your podcasting, whatever of choice. Email us if it's the username is not, like... username and that is not the same as the one in game. Email us, let us know you've sent us a review, and you go into the draw for $10. Free RP, all yours. Also, don't forget there's the Trinity Force Network subreddit, which is reddit.com/TForce Network. We always have a discussion thread for all the different shows, and you can just go and ask questions. So if you can't catch us in the OzLoL chat room, or, you can get us on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, you can always hit us up there. And then the whole vast array of wisdom of the Trinity Force network can be at your disposal. And also, don't forget the Trinity... Okay, so there's the Trinity Force TeamSpeak. They've actually changed the server name. And I don't immediately have it on hand. I'll actually see if I can quickly find it. No, I don't have it. I'll have to... Basically, I'll tweet, now I actually need to find it because I can't check it. It's changed. If you try and use the ts.trinityforcepodcast.com, right now it will give you a server error. So there's a number. It's like 140 something. Just hit me up in game if you want to jump on it and you can't get in. That's all I'm saying. Just, yeah. Tweet at me.
For our listeners, it'll probably end up in the intro, but Carrot and I had a discussion before this about coming into these podcasts more prepared than...
We're never prepared. Steve only has the impression that we're prepared because there's a document that's there before our time, but I wasn't able to do that. We're never organised, really. And actually, to make mention that we'll actually be starting 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Monday nights pretty much permanently now. So if you're wondering, if you ever had the thing where maybe we said we started at 7 and we didn't start till 7:30, that's not going to happen anymore because Trinity Force is going to get a little bit of a bit more organised overall. So all the shows will be actually starting on time because, well, actually our sister show, the Trinity Force proper, is going to be on the Twitch front page this week. So that's why we're going to get our shit together, basically. So yes. And, Battle Arena is going to be... So I think last week I said Friday, when I actually talked to the people
last
who...
Week you said Thursday.
Oh, did I say Thursday? Okay.
You said Thursday last week.
Okay, good. All right.
Thursday rolled around, you realised...
Yeah.
We can't do it Thursday.
And then I thought, we'll do it Fridays because Trippy, like our good friend Trippy Guy who was doing it previously, said that Fridays worked well for trying to get people on board. When I actually checked with the people who I was going to be casting with, they're like, yeah, Fridays don't work for us. So it's going to be Thursdays just because it works for us. From 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Join the OzLoL chat room. We always put the details of the games. That was the word I'm looking for. Games. In that chat room. And we'll probably only have 2 games this week just because I've got a meeting later. So 2 games this week. It'll be 3 normally. And I think that's it for show news. So let's talk about International Wildcard Invitational. So, of course, this was an event. The winner of this event goes to play in the mid-season invitational against Korean teams and Chinese teams and a team from each of the major regions. Playing, so this was held over last weekend, sort of Thursday through the weekend. We had the INS Esports. We had the Bangkok Titans from GPL. The Chaos Latin Gamers from Latin America. It must have been Brazilian then. Yes. Chiefs, of course, the Oceanic's own Chiefs Esports Club. Detonation Focus Me from Japan. Hard Random from the Russian territories. The CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States. That's what it is. Yep. And then there's the Turkish team, which the name I cannot pronounce, and so it's BJK. It's best. Yeah.
Something like that. I think I'm overpronouncing the S's, but yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
I love European accents. I really do.
Hey, it's fine. The European accents are great. I can't pronounce their words. I'd rather not butcher the Turkish language. So,
I know.
Especially on Anzac Day, or, Anzac Day long weekend, man. That'd just be, rude.
Dude, especially, I've actually been really enjoying getting back into my European language roots because, I'm not actually originally, French or anything like that, but I did a lot of French in high school. And there's a new person that we are engaging with that's French. Isn't there, Steve? That we will not mention details
that's
of.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I actually introduced myself to him in French, which was really fun.
Cool.
I have had no use for that skill since high school.
Très bien.
I think it'd be a bit rude. 100 years after we sent all our guys to go and shoot at them, 100 years later, then screw up the name of their esports tournament. So it's just, let's not be rude towards them. So BJK, that's what I'm referring to. Anyway, let's get back on topic. So, spoilers, of course.
I can't go an entire episode without you alienating a culture.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm just trying to be nice these days because you picked me up on it. So we had, Chiefs played 6 games. Spoiler alert, they went 3-3 and failed to make it into the semi-finals. So they had wins against Chaos Latin Gamers, INTZ, and Detonation Focus Me from Japan. And then they had losses against BJK, Hard Random, and Bangkok Titans. With Bangkok Titans actually ended up winning. They pretty much, they stomped in the group stage. They went 5-1.
No, best BJK won. So in the
BJK, Bangkok, sorry, BJK won, which is good for them. Sorry, I'm looking at the thing because it's BKT is Bangkok Titans and BJK is the Turkish one.
Which is really, really funny because I'm just scrolling through where was BKT's Bangkok Titans only loss in the groups. It was actually to Instead Esports, so it wasn't even to the Turkish team BJK in the groups, and then they got 3-0'd by BJK in the semi-finals. So
and there's actually some really great videos of the crowd cheering at the end of it. which I saw this morning because I didn't actually watch the final because I'm like, Chiefs is not in it, so what do I care? Yeah, no, it was good. It was like, and what I learned is actually because there's like a really famous soccer team that's from the same place, obviously, and they use the same chants. I was like, that's cool. Anyway, let's talk about Chiefs because we're an Oceanic sport, podcast. How do we feel Chiefs went? So they beat teams basically on the lower end of the standings. How do we feel they went from the games that you saw?
I think they did all right. As we were just saying, they went. They lost against the team that was almost undefeated in their particular seed, and that game was actually quite decent to watch. The team compositions of the games of Chiefs that I saw were I was a little bit up in the air about them because one of the things that I'm loving about the metagame at the moment is that almost anyone can be viable given the right circumstances. So the strengths in team compositions isn't going to come from, oh, well, that champion's clearly overpowered, let's build a comp around them. I was really expecting a lot more of champion synergy and team composition strengths, like let's make a comp based around this. And I felt it wasn't just Chiefs either. It was most of the teams in the games that I did see, because I haven't seen all of them. A lot of it lacked synergy, or there was a little bit of synergy, but it was like it's a generic team fight, like rather than going for a specific goal apart from team fighting. So I did find that there was a little bit lacking on that side of things. A couple of games that I missed that I remember the casters, who did an amazing job, by the way. They pointed out that the Chiefs normally they go for the early mid game thing and just control the game, but they were going with late game scaling champions, and that was a bit of their downfall. So even though I didn't see those matches, that's a bit of a shame to hear. But yeah, that's what are you thinking, Ranconius?
Just the fact that I mean, you mentioned it. They went with the late game compositions. I believe I saw Swiffer and Oriana quite a couple of times. Like I was actually rather busy since Thursday, so I only got to see bits and pieces and snippets of the game. But some of the highlights that I saw was that the Chiefs were just like hard diving, a little bit over committing. I think they're falling into that trap again. It's that they're trying to play too aggressive, because this is the trap that they sort of fell in last year. And I love the Chiefs, so I don't want to see them fall into that again. So they need to make sure that they don't come out of the Oceanic region too overconfident in themselves again. They need to make sure that they're checking themselves. Is this the right decision?
Yeah.
So,
well, based on the interviews, it looked like they were very, very prepared mentally. Like they were, we've performed very well this season, and now we really want to prove what the Oceanic region can do on an international stage. And we came tied for 4th place, but didn't get that 4th seed. So it's a damn good result on the international level. I mean, obviously, would have liked to have won the whole thing, but that's just not the way it turned out. But no, I can't complain about their performance.
I can complain about their performance. Only one game in particular. So the first game was interesting. So basically they all spawned. They all ran from the red side into the blue jungle, and it was this is literally the first minute of the first game, and Swiper was leading the way. I think he was top lane Hecarim with Smite and Teleport, and they just KLG Chaos Latin Games parked themselves in the brush that just sort of on the other side of the wolf camp. And he just ran into it, and there was just and they give out first blood in in the first minute or something. So that was a bit of a.
I'll be with you then. Level 1s has been kind of the Chiefs' problem on the international stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Swiffer got caught out as Tryndamere. I mean, it was. Right. It's one of those things that
strategy, but more like they haven't had enough practice against it in the Oceanic region.
Yeah.
That they're kind of expecting or know how to react in that sort of counterplay, because you really don't see a lot of that in the Oceanic meta.
Well, yeah, I mean, they obviously must have done their research and realized that in these in certain games they noticed that they all group and go through that area, because they it wasn't they all collapsed because they spot somebody. It was just they were literally can't stopping there to begin with. So it might have been a fluke. It might have been scattered out in their research. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it was a small mistake, and in the end, Swiper came back and went huge. Like he just ended up he managed to farm his way back into it. He got enough kills, and I think in the end he ended up going 10-2, like something just ridiculous. Yeah. So they ended up winning that game, but obviously that sort of unnerved them to begin with. The second game. That was really smooth. So this is against INTZ, or INTS, or whatever it is. Great. Played well. The game I really had a problem with, and this is one I watched in the VOD, so I was typing about it on Twitter while, in the middle of the day, and people were like, hang on, what's going on?
Yeah,
But this is against BJK, and I don't know what happened. They just must have lost their nerve. I think the early game, they didn't go so well. They were being out-farmed. They didn't give up... I don't think they gave up first blood particularly easily, but they were under a lot of pressure, and BGK were really playing well. And I don't know, they must have just got a bit off their game. Swiffer was doing pretty well, but the rest of the team weren't doing so crash hot. But the main problem is they got to the mid game and they did nothing. They made no moves, they showed no initiative, they just kind of faffed about, and that was the disappointing thing because. I mean, Chiefs in the OPL can be a very decisive team. They got these really strong rotations, really strong movements, really coordinated, and even when they get a little bit behind in the early game, they can still, that's where they really kick ass. And it was really frustrating because they had opportunities that they didn't take hold of. Yeah. So that game for me was just I was maybe they're tired, whatever it was, maybe they're just off their game, but they played terribly, and they got just drilled. And deservingly so. So that was really disappointing.
And what's really bad is that particular game is probably the reason we didn't get fourth place.
Well, that's it. Yeah, because they based both BJK and Chiefs went 3-3. Because BJK beaten Chiefs, they got ahead, and they got fourth place, and Chiefs got fifth. So it ended up being a crucial game. So I mean, that was that was really disappointing.
That was one of the games that I've missed. So
okay.
It literally was a list of games that I've got to watch that fills my entire sub box on YouTube. It's just daunting. Just this wall of. They've got quite a nice, pretty graphic on there. They've got IWCI and then day 2, day 3, and all that sort of stuff. And you could scroll until it goes load more, and it's just nothing but that.
Yeah.
So I've still got some games.
There's a lot of games, but it was just. I mean, I guess for me as a Chiefs fan. It was disappointing to see them so off their game. So one of the later games... So I think their next game... So they played against... who was next? Where were they? They played against Hard Random. And they still looked shaky, but nowhere near as bad. So they got beaten. But they just... it was just so aimless. That was the really frustrating. It wasn't even so much they were playing badly. It was just they were playing... nothing at all. They look like a bronze team. When the bronze team gets to the mid game, it has no idea what they're doing. That's what it looked like.
It's again because I didn't see the 2 games from that day. I haven't watched day 2 yet, but it was probably more.
This is day 1, by the way. This is the third game of day 1.
Are we not talking about day 2?
Not yet. We're still talking about BJ. I'm still complaining about BJK versus Chiefs, which is the third game of day 1.
Random game.
No, I just said as a point of comparison, they didn't look as aimless.
You confused the hell out of me.
I thought I was perfectly, whatever.
You may have been. Have been. It's been a long day for me.
Okay. Holidays are hard work. It's okay, mate.
I'm not on holidays anymore.
So anyway, BJK was disappointing, but they played better against Hard Random, and Bangkok Titans. I think Bangkok Titans actually probably, from what I recall, it's been a few days, obviously. But they had the opportunity to win a couple of times. They basically was neck and neck for most of the game. Well, they actually looked a lot more confident. They looked a lot better. Obviously, they dispatched Detonation, Focus Me easily, like most of the teams. But so by the time they got to the end of the tournament, they were looking better. It was just that game against BJK that was just what is going through their heads. And I think in that regard, they'll actually be able to learn a lot because for most of the tournament, they were pretty good. A couple of games could have gone their way. So Hard Random and BKT, Bangkok Titans, they could have actually probably won if they'd just kind of done a few things differently here and there. It was just that BJK game was wow. Anyway, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say the Detonation Focus Me game. They were ahead in gold. Like Chiefs were ahead in gold almost the entire time, uh, but they'd given up 3 dragons without trading for an objective at all. So I was really on the edge of my seat in that. I'm like, what are you guys doing? There's a dragon. If you're not gonna, if you're not gonna contest it, you need to take the mid tower or something like that. And there was a moment where it looked like Morgana, I think it was. I'm trying to remember which team composition they were running that game, but they was trying to zone them off dragon 1v5, while the rest of the team was kind of half-heartedly going, should we push mid? Should we contest dragon? And in the end, the enemy team got dragon. Detonation Focus Me got dragon, and then they were rotating and they needed to get the hell out of there, so they didn't even get the tower. And that happened that sort of scenario happened a couple of times in that game. So I was just like, ooh, like we're ahead in gold, but if we don't turn that gold into kills and really snowball it, then that dragon advantage is really going to show. But fortunately, they did take advantage of their gold lead, and they were able to pull out a win in that game. Fortunately,
something I'd like to point out from the tournament coming through from the Chiefs is we're seeing a heavy focus from them onto the Sivir pick. I'm not very fond of Sivir at all on this patch. Like, the trouble for me is this is super tank meta, right? So you need tank buster material. So it's coming in through Gragas is like the main tank buster at the moment. But their compositions are obviously working. I really see Lucian as the AD carrier of this patch. So I don't know. I'd like to see that.
They ran Lucian versus BKT in their last game.
Yeah, and Ray actually did really well in that game. I think he looked.
No. He actually ran Lucian in both games, and in against BKT and against Detonation Focus Me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Detonation Focus Me, he was like 3-0-3 really early.
Yeah.
And then directly after, like that following day when they were going up against BKT, they were Bangkok Titans.
Yeah.
They picked the Nunu jungle, obviously, to facilitate Radiant on that Lucian, but he went 0-3 in lane. It's like, oh dear. And then the Nunu was just always a few seconds too late in counter ganks or in preventing kills and such. So it was a bit, yeah. I think the Nunu pick probably hurt them a bit in the Bangkok Titans game, just because Radiant didn't get ahead like he had previously.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's the Sivir pick is pretty much what I was saying before. Is that the team comps seem to be generic team fight comps, and that's what Sivir's picked for. So, and I think that was a bit of a weakness over the entire tournament. So not just Chiefs, but
yeah. I mean, Radio didn't look. There was a couple of games he looked amazing, like he looked like Radio, but there was other games where he just looked kind of mediocre. But that Nunu pick, every time I Spooks takes Nunu, I kind of feel like it's a waste. I mean, yeah, maybe for the first 8 minutes or something, he does what Nunu is supposed to do, which is harass the lanes, take counter jungle a bit, just be
harass the lanes. It's literally just walk in, buff the AD carry, see what happens.
Yeah,
nothing happens. Okay, walk back out again like nothing ever happened, because nothing ever did happen. But
I mean, there's a couple of times I remember him getting a really great gank on top lane, using his absolute zero, basically positioned himself properly, and just annihilated the top laner. But then, I mean, this is a real problem with BJK, and this is a problem we also saw in, I think, OPL, where if Spooks takes that, they don't really have usually they don't have, great initiation. So I think they had Maokai and Nunu, and it's there's no real great initiation. If they took Sion, because, Swiper's Sion is, awesome. Then at least they've got one person to actually go forward, where Nunu just doesn't really do that. He just kind of, he meanders around.
Yeah, in the Bangkok Titans match specifically, I was just thinking, because they was it BKT early locked Callista, and I'm like, a Vi would have been fantastic. I mean, we've seen Spooks do amazing things, completely carry games with Vi, or not carry in the solo queue sense, but just set up every single lane for victory and just devastate. And it's just such a great counter to Callista, whereas Nunu doesn't really do anything against Callista. Was the slow of movement speed does nothing to someone who gets a free bounce, so it was really okay, everybody, let's get on Radia's back when they locked in that Nunu, and when Radia when you could see it in the compositions, well, let's gank bottom because that's what they're betting everything on. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Swiffer on Cassidy is always.
Swiffer was amazing the whole tournament.
Amazing tournament, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Swiper did pretty well as well. Like apart from that, the level 1 mistake in the first game, like
Don't be too harsh on him, like.
No. Like I think it was just a coincidence. Like I suspect that
first game of the tournament. Like there is no way that you walk out into the first game of the tournament, work into the first 2 minutes of it, and don't do something silly or funny to what you would normally do. And for especially like it means so much more when it's on Swiper as well, because he's just such consistent top laner. He's a consistent pressure, but he never, when Swiper even has that rare off time and he's losing lane, he still seems to have pressure on the map. That's what we know Swiper for, and when he does something like this and loses that early pressure and just that early stability in his lane, then, it means a bit more just because of how consistent he is. And we pointed out and be a bit more harsher on it, but we really shouldn't be. Just like his consistency has basically gotten the Chiefs to where they are. The fact that they know that they can set up, if Swiper receives a gank, great, Swiper gets ahead off that gank, and he will set up to be ahead off that gank. If Swiper doesn't receive a gank, great, nothing really happened up there anyway, he's farmed, and that's just how the Chiefs play. That allows, them to focus more on towards Radiant or Swiffer, depending upon which side of the composition really wants to be. So that's what we know.
Which one got a double kill in lane?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just a mistake. Like it was a freak out, like a freak thing. I suspect that KLG were going to probably they were grouping there, and then they were going to move as a group through the jungle, and it just happened that they walked past really quickly, because it wasn't like they literally, as soon as they spawned, they bought. As soon as they could get out of the base, they all ran. So it wasn't like a thing where they kind of positioned themselves and then moved. It was just a freak thing. But anyway, in that game, Swiper carried the hell out of the game. Like I think he ended up being huge. And huge Hecarim is nasty. Like, it's brutal. So, and Swiffer was great. And Spooks was good. Like, aside from the Nunu pick, he's a great jungler. And he ganks top lane and mid lane wonderfully. Like, the synergy he has with Swiffer is amazing. It was just, I think it was a few bad picks. And probably going a bit on tilt for some of them. That kind of put them out. But I mean, I think from the great thing about the current format is that there's 2 international events they can go to. Like last year, the year before, there was only Wildcard, which is for Worlds, and that was it. Except for, you had the World Cyber Games for Legacy, I guess. They got to go to WCG. But otherwise, you basically have a thing where everything's riding on this one wildcard. Well, this year they got 2 wildcards, and one of them leads to mid-season, which is good, but the second one leads to Worlds. And so I think what's really great for Chiefs is they've had this experience. I think there's a lot they can learn from what they did. Like I think they've got the right. They're in the ballpark. They could have actually won this tournament. Like they could have actually beaten all of them. It just happened that a few things went against them through their own bad choices. But I think they can win the next wildcard. They can be there and they can win and go to Worlds, and who knows what happens then, So that's what I'm really enjoying about this.
They beat a few EU teams, then get knocked out by Korea.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's like everybody else.
But it's more important, I feel like. When was the last time that Chiefs had to go to a place where, they weren't expected to do really highly, When was the last time they got that experience to go over and brawl? And most importantly, because I'm in a few of the global management chats and whatnot, I saw that they were going to be engaging with a lot of the European professional teams from the LCS with scrims prior to that. So that was a really, really positive experience for them. They've now got a gauge where they can go, hey, let's go home, let's focus on this next season, but let's keep these notes shelved, because if we win the next season, we're just going to immediately grab them back out and go, right, we're planning for this, what did we do wrong last time, what can we improve on this time? Our research was really good, okay, let's focus on making sure we get that research done again, but this time we're going to make sure that we're not nervy in that first game, we're going to be a lot more settled, whatever they need to do, they have got a marker now. And I can guarantee you as well, just because of the way the Chiefs are, that no matter who ends up with the winning slot from this next split of OPL, they'll be helping them out with that information as well. They'll be saying, hey, this is the research that we have on those international teams. Hey, this is potentially something that you could you know, we've had the experience, we know what it's like. Here's some advice on how best to deal with the crowd, the level of attention that you're going to receive because it's so much higher. You know, they're going to help that out. And so, you know, just the best part about the Chiefs going to an international event is that they're going to benefit the scene with that as well. I think is probably one of the better aspects of it. And we know that they will, because they offered that support to Legacy the last time Legacy went.
Absolutely. I mean, I think just to sort of go back to their kind of standing in the potential they have to win this sort of thing. Sangi, the manager of Chiefs, he made a really funny, interesting comment on Twitter. So as they were going into the final game against Bangkok, because if they beat Bangkok Titans, they would have been in 4th place. He's like, you know, this BJK. You know, he said basically this team BJK, they were in 5th. They needed to have Chiefs lose, so they'll be tied, and therefore they get placed in 4th. He's like, you know, this team that has full-time gamers, they have their own, you know, sponsors, they have a gaming house, they got the works. Like, they're basically a professional team. You know, their hopes are riding on a semi-professional team getting beaten. And that's, you know, I just thought that was really quite interesting that, you know, like, for all, like, yeah, you look at Bangkok Titans, you know, you got BJK, there's probably maybe even others where they've actually fully set up to do esports, like, seriously, in air quotes, seriously, you know, they're setting aside full time to do it. And then you got Chiefs who, they all live in different cities, they go to uni, they've got jobs, and they're coming along and they could potentially win the thing. So, you know, it's a good platform for them to work from. And I'm looking forward to them going 14-0 in OPL Split 2. Go, boys. And then go to...
No.
Oh, okay.
Fortnite hype.
No.
Fortnite hype.
Fortnite, keep dreaming.
But, like you mentioned it, the gaming houses and whatnot, I feel like we're actually in a transitional stage. I think if somebody can... Like, we've already had the AV experiment, where they experimented with the gaming house, and more than anything else... they stuck the wrong team in the house. That was a major part of the house falling to bits and that not really leading to any success. I think Chiefs can do it. And if Chiefs can do it and make it successful, we're going to transition into a phase where Australia does have gaming houses. So I'm really keen for this. The next sort of 6 months, not just for League of Legends, but like Australian esports as a whole is about to transition into, you know, a more competitive phase. The major problem with this and actually... national scale, like across all esports, is that we do have a scene that is highly mobile with people moving between teams. I've been working heavily with the Smite scene. It's there because obviously it's a lot newer scene. It happens quite regularly, but Call of Duty teams are just shifting around between organizations all the time. Like one of the teams that went to the international event for Call of Duty shifted from XL5 over to Avant-Garde after the event when they come home. So that sort of stuff, as soon as we lock that into place and stop that from happening, we're going to transition into a period of gaming houses. So out of that tournament, I feel that could be potentially something that's on the horizon, especially if Chiefs lock in a few more sponsors as well. Yeah,
I mean that's ultimately that's the barrier is money. You know, there's not really, and this is a problem also I think for the LCS in that if it wasn't for the fact that Riot is stumping up the cash to do everything, pay all the players, run all the streams, you know, there just wouldn't be as high quality as it is. Just because there's not the base, you know, viewer base and fan base yet. You know, you think about AFL or, you know, whatever sporting code you like, you've got multiple generations of people who are invested in teams and in the sport and in watching it and in going to pubs, you know, to watch it. And that generates TV rights and that generates, you know, radio rights and that generates merchandise and that generates, you know, there's lots of money involved that can support these huge organizations. And right now, basically, you've got a bunch of nerds, young nerds, who like games, and of them, a subset likes esports. So really what you need more generations of people who like esports. And then that's when I think it becomes really viable. So I'm a bit more of a skeptic. I'm more of it's going to be a long-term thing. But anyway, we maybe should set that for another discussion because, yeah, we could talk about that all night. So any final thoughts about Chiefs and RWCI?
I really want to give everyone in the production team, the casters, a really good shout out. They did a good job. They did a really good job.
Absolutely. Did you see some of the photos on Twitter as well? That the teams actually had their own booth set up backstage to practice and set up and whatnot. So that allowed them to fly into the event as well. And this is something that I thought was really, really well done. Fly into the event, and then they just had to go to the venue. And they're set up, they've got a practice booth, they know what they're going to be practicing on, they know that they're set up and whatnot, they can prepare a few days in advance. They're like, alright, we've got our TeamSpeak set up, we've got X, we've got Y, everything's set up, and then they just get comfortable, they order pizza or whatever they need to order that place, they're comfortable, they know where they're going, it's not walk into a new stadium where you've never been before, you've got no practice, you've got a computer that you've never practiced on out the back before, and then you're just going to plug in your peripherals. Like, you know what you're going into. And I think that was very well done. That's a big round of applause. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the quality of the stream and the quality of the casting and the rest of it, like, I think just lends more credibility to the international wildcard and, you know, something for people to watch. So, yeah, no, it was good. It was a great production. All right. Well, of course, OPL Split 2 is going to start sometime in the future. Presumably, because have they actually finished all the promo, like the relegation promotions?
No, I think
that's still ongoing.
Actually.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I think Fortnite versus. I'm trying to remember. Hang on, it should be on the Oceanic Pro League page schedule.
Okay.
No, is it there?
No.
No, I was reading on Twitter earlier that there'd be a game for versus Fortnite tonight.
Okay, all right.
With the team that was fighting them, but no, it's not done yet.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, I guess they'll probably be starting in the next 6 weeks or so. I'd imagine, because I mean, if you've got
start later than that, they've got to get the season through, then playoffs, and then wildcards.
Yeah, then wildcards. So I mean, really, really, they need to be done by the end of July at the latest. So if they're going to do another 8 weeks,
start of September.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the wild card would probably be mid-September, and then Worlds would kick off late September. So.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, if we basically at the end of August, 7 weeks before then, so yeah, mid-June, mid-July, maybe late June. So yeah, so I guess that is a little while, a couple of months. Anyway, we'll obviously be talking about all that when it actually happens. So. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about something that's been in the document for like a bazillion years, which is my personal beef of how to take a dragon properly. Because in bronze, this is what happens. Everybody runs the dragon. Well, sorry, no, not everybody. One person's up in another lane, farting about. 2 or 3 other people, 4 people come together at the dragon. They start attacking the dragon. They don't ward. Then some people come out of the darkness, jump on them, kill them, and then get the dragon.
You shouldn't stop the dragon if you don't have wards.
Or the jungler comes in, and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. They just start to freak out, and then the jungler smites it away. The enemy jungler smites it away because nobody knows what they're doing. So anyway, let's talk about that. So,
well, something that needs to be pointed out is even in the high level of competitive play, the debate about whether to commit to the dragon, burn it down, and then turn and fight, or the second someone's within initiation range, turn and fight and leave the dragon to regen, or whether just to back off the dragon because you know that you can't fight them. Those sort of things are still hotly debated topics amongst players in games and while watching VODs. You know, like if you go back and you watch a particular game, you can see these 2 players might have been hesitant, but the rest of them had committed to the dragon, and that got those 2 players killed. It's like, whereas if 3 of them had joined the other 2 in engaging, or if those 2 had joined doing the dragon, that little bit of hesitation, they would have just got the dragon. So when you're talking in a solo queue game, in general, that sort of stuff comes up even more often, because if your jungler goes and starts doing the dragon, and you're a support and there's an AD carry there as well, the support doesn't do a lot of auto attack damage, has never done, just kind of attack, whereas the AD carry starts laying it down. Now, the jungler might want you to tank, might want the support to tank a couple of hits from it, because he's getting a bit low, or he might want to back off because he spotted someone on the ward or anything like that. And you've got like a millisecond to communicate that with no voice comms.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, that's a key I mean, that's probably the chief problem with solo queue and dragons, or, normals or whatever, is that you don't have that communication, and that's so critical in knowing, okay, if their jungler comes... Because, I mean, if you've warded up, and if nobody shows up, it's easy. There's no dramas there. It's, if they come up, what do? Do you, as soon as you see them, do you jump on them? Because you've cleared wards, they're not going to see you coming, and you can get the kill that... everybody then kills the jungler, and then you go back to dragon. Or do you just, like, zone the jungler and then engage afterwards? Or, there's a few ways you can do it, but you kind of need to... There needs to be communication. Like, ideally you would have communication, but you don't always have... You don't have it, because it's solo queue.
Well, if you look at it, the choice of supports is actually quite important in this, because generally your support will be your kind of pick potential, like a Morgana or a Leona. Really good at catching someone out of position, and generally they've got and those two champions in particular, they have the kind of ideal engage range for defending the dragon pit. So if someone's coming in and you can hit a Morgana binding from where you're standing whilst being in attack range of the dragon, your AD carry, your AP mid, and your top laner are probably within follow-up range of that pick opportunity. So if you've got those sort of champions that can pick off one person who's coming to check the blind dragon, actually that's a good point. We should probably bring it before. Clear wards.
Yeah.
When you're going to do a dragon, use your
do a dragon. Oh my God.
Yeah. Use your sweeper. Use your trinket to get rid of all the wards that are in the dragon pit. A nifty trick that a few people learned early in the season, that some people might not be aware of, is if you smite the big raptor, you get a buff that if you are spotted by a ward, it will automatically give you the ability to clear.
Or gives you true sight.
Yeah. It gives you true sight, so you can see invisible things. If you smite that before dragon, or when you've got 2 stacks of smite, you can run down the dragon pit, and if you don't get true sight that entire time, it means they don't have vision anywhere in that area, which means you can ward without them knowing where you're warding. You can put down, you can get wards deeper in their jungle still with that true shot. Just use that buff to get ready for dragons, and if you know they haven't got vision, then you can do that sort of stuff.
But more importantly than that, if you're red side, you need to have wards over the back of the red buff wall in that brush there. You can't do a dragon without that. Yeah. You should be, if you're going to do a dragon, minimum vision should be 2 wards. Don't do it unless you have 2 wards. Have one if you're blue side on the ramp as you come into dragon pit up to blue buff, right? For red side's blue buff, and then on the banana bush as it goes up into the ramp into the jungle of red side as well. If you're red side and you're warding out dragon, back of red buff and tri-brush. Do not do dragon without those wards. Why? Intel to see who's coming can tell you whether you should or shouldn't do the dragon.
Or you should burn it down and then back off, or that sort of information is crucial. There's a couple of champions that must be taken into account.
Absolutely.
Lee Sin, Gragas, Callista are very big ones.
Elise, as she's returning to the meta.
Yeah. These champions are very good. Gragas and Lee Sin specifically, they can steal dragons easy. They can just throw an smite combo over the wall, or not. Well, that's what Gragas would do. Lee Sin can Q in, smite, and get out safely, and then you've given up your dragon. This counts for Baron as well. That particular scenario, when you've got a Callista on your team, the risk for taking dragon and Baron drops significantly, because you're not going to get that stolen if your Callista knows what they're doing, of course. Because the rend damage, once she's got a few sticks in them, is just crazy good. It outsmites smite, which is something that you can't say about a lot of skills in League of Legends. So, those are some certain champion considerations. So we've got the Morgana, Leona, anyone with that sort of range or kit is quite good for that sort of defending the dragon pit area. The certain champions that can wall hop are quite good at smite stealing, and champions that are really good at securing. Karthus, because the answer is always Karthus, burns down dragon ridiculously fast, because level 9 he's got max lay waste.
But that's a risk though. It's a huge risk. If you on Karthus, he does do the dragon incredibly quickly. You'll be very correct with that. But if you do that, you find yourself generally quite lacking for any fight afterwards. So you have to pick.
Burn it down strategy.
Yeah.
Also, if he's got blue buff, the risk is significantly lowered as well. So yeah.
So
it's one of those things that it also depends like what stage of the game you're at. Like if you've got a jungle that can tank the dragon, then you can have 4 people just zoning. 4 people looking to get a pick or whatever. Yeah. But the first dragon, you can't really do that. You can't generally leave. You could probably do it with 2 people depending how, like where the jungle is at. Like if you've got a Sejuani who's full health, maybe you could leave the AD, mid and support, zone. But really, if they're coming to contest a dragon like that, you probably just want to back off because, you're not necessarily going to be able to get that fight. It's certainly not a fight on the dragon, like while the dragon's actually attacking you. I guess, but certainly once you get to sort of level, like, past level 10 or so, you're probably going to be pretty tanky. Your jungle's going to be pretty tanky. Yeah, they can solo and you can zone. Because Lee Sin's one of the worst because he can get in so easily and then get out as well. Gragas is bad because he can try and snipe. But he isn't physically present in the middle of the thing, where Lee Sin actually gets in there and it's just ugly.
Yeah. Part of the problem is that Gragas can knock your jungler out of smite range.
It's true. That's a good point, yeah.
And come in and smite freely with the burst damage of his QR combo.
Yeah.
Just so he can output such a large spike of damage whilst disrupting the enemy's ability
that's a good point.
To put through damage. Yep. So that's why he's in that sort of situation.
And that's why he's returning to the meta as well, is just purely that he brings dragon control to the table. Other options that you really have to think about as well, just team compositions. Who you mentioned it, dragon stealing compositions like Lee Sin, Elise, Kha'Zix, etc., etc., etc. But on the other side, you've also got to say, hey, if we've got a Xerath shouldn't be on the dragon. Like, Xerath should not be using his E or his W on the dragon.
Yeah.
And he's used such a high mana cost as well. He really shouldn't be doing that on the dragon. Maybe auto-attacking for the mana return.
Yeah.
That's fine, but as soon as somebody shows their head through any one of the wards, he should go straight to zone ability because his stuns and his slows delay anyone else being able to get into the dragon pit so long that you can guarantee that one for you.
And that's the same with Ziggs or Lux or Nidalee as well, actually, for that matter. Nidalee uses spears just to snipe people and get vision on them. Ziggs can obviously knock people away and, throw bombs at them, and Lux can bind people at long distance. So.
Those sort of champions make taking dragon sort of risky because they're meant to have a positional advantage and poke and all that sort of stuff, but they're very, very good at forcing the enemy team off dragon because it's like, well, we're getting hit by dragon and Xerath Qs and ults. We're getting hit by Jace Qs through the acceleration gate. That can be a massive deterrent because all it takes is for a couple of strong poke hits to come in. And all of a sudden, the commitment to that dragon is not looking nearly as appealing as it was a few seconds ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mind you, at low levels, they'll probably just keep whacking away at it because they think, I can still clear it, which is part of the problem.
Well, that's it. And then Jace gets a triple kill.
Yeah, that's it.
So, I'm not sure, really. Previously, because Golden Experience is what came out of Dragon. And it's gone through a couple of transitional phases since then. Now, Dragon gives a passive buff that stays with you for the rest of the game. It's not as easy to equate, how many people are we willing to lose over this Dragon? Because it really does depend entirely on your team composition, how likely they are to steal it, and all these certain factors. Like, you don't want to go, okay, if we get the Dragon, it's okay if they kill 3 of us. That's not a good trade. But if, 2 people go down, if you've got a late game scaling comp, that may be worth it. It may not, though. So look at your game scaling to figure out whether it's, risk assessment is really what you need to look at. Yeah. Now, Carrot, you brought this topic up. You've wanted to talk about it for ages. Do you have any pet peeves or anything that you want to bring up about it?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me was, people need to learn, people at bronze level, because that's where I'm at, and maybe even silver, you need to learn to turn and, because I've seen situations where you've got a least, I'm trying to zone as a support, but it's the sort of thing that once I've used my abilities, they're on cooldown for the rest of the fight for the dragon. So I need to, like, I can't necessarily use them. So I'm trying to zone against a Lee Sin who gets pretty much up to the dragon pit. And I'm like, ping the thing saying, let's attack him and kill him and then go back to the dragon. But, you know, I can't type that because it's obviously in the middle of, you know, the thing.
Yeah.
So I guess the key thing is, like, if the jungler gets that close, if he's at the outside of the dragon pit, then you should attack him and you should kill him and then go back. So
don't DPS the dragon whilst it's in smite. Like, don't if it's getting close to smite range.
Yeah.
If the dragon's sitting at 2k health and a Lee Sin walks up and he tags it with a Q, don't DPS it. Don't touch that thing. Run back over and DPS him because he'll just Q in and smite and get the dragon.
That's it. I mean,
9 times out of 10.
And this is a situation where there's one Lee Sin and 4 people on my team, or 3 people on my team, and if we turn and fight him, we will kill him almost immediately because I play like Leona or a Thresh or something like that. Yeah. So it's like you're dead. Like he is gone. But it's one of those things that you actually have to, you know, if I engage, people have to follow up because if I go in and use my abilities, then I can't zone him anymore from the dragon. He's then going to queue in and get the smite off. So
it actually does remind me of a discussion we had a while ago that you brought up about pre-planning. Like if they come at us, we turn.
Yeah.
Or after a kill, let's Baron. You know, that sort of thing. If you type it out beforehand.
Yep.
Then it makes it a lot easier for people to react, especially in Bronze. Because if you think about what Bronze is, it's the majority of the player base.
Yep, including me.
Like most people don't have really great reaction. Like if you're a jungler, like you say you're in solo queue, you're not a full-time jungler. You prefer to go mid, but you've been forced into the jungling role, and you're trying to kill the dragon. You're going to make sure that you're in smite range and everything like that. And your support player starts pinging the enemy Lee Sin. You're like, whoa, what's going to happen? Is he going to smite? Like, you could just, like, really panic. Your reaction speed's not nearly, it's not, like, pro level, so you can't expect people to react to that. Like, a ping could mean engage. It could be a warning ping. Like, you need that half a microsecond just to acknowledge what sort of ping it is.
Yep.
And the person pinging's not 250 actions per minute either.
No, that's it.
You know, the time they spend pinging, they can't be initiating unless they fired the spell off before they pinged, in which case no one can follow up on that anyway. So,
I mean, even at a professional level, I mean, St. Vicious, who played for Curse, you know, he was regularly given a hard time about the fact he couldn't get a contested smite down. You know, he'd always get it stolen away. And that's because when you're on the dragon, or on the Baron for that matter, and then they come and they're trying to steal it, like the pressure is on you because you're thinking about, okay, I need to burn down this monster, but I also need to think about this guy who's lurking around as well. So it splits your attention, where the guy who's trying to steal, all he's thinking about is trying to get the steal. Like that's all he cares about. So it is pressured. I guess it's...
So just a little bit of pre-planning so that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
So that when those pings come down, they're able to really extrapolate just, that means kill that guy. Because that's what you said before.
And it's literally to the point in the chat where it's just like, Lee Sin steals Drake easy. If he comes, kill him.
Yep.
You know, or kill whoever needs to die at that fight. Don't DPS Dragon. You know, just say, you know, if Lee comes, don't do Drag.
Yep.
Do Lee. You know, or something like that.
You don't necessarily need to use like pro terms. Like the word turn in pro league is basically turn and fight them is what that means. But if you just say turn to people you don't know what people's backgrounds. They might be a casual player. They might not use that sort of lingo. Like, be very clear in what you want when you're communicating.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I guess that's a term that's for voice comms for practice teams, so they can make split-second decisions. It's not something for the common vernacular.
And I guess fitting into this whole thing about pre-planning, and also, I guess, expectations as well. Like, when you go into this, you have in your own mind, you're thinking, okay, if this happens, I do this. If this happens, I do this. You know, you actually already thinking about what you're going to do before it happens. Yeah. You know, so much, especially low levels of ranked, so much, you know, if you can seize the initiative, that is, if you can get on your front foot while they're still kind of not focused on, you know, this enemy that's coming at them, you can, you know, absolutely clean up. And I was playing a game today with Splattered, who's in the chat, you know, and there was a couple of team fights where, you know, I was playing as Leona, I landed like a really good solar flare, you know, everybody gets caught up because we're all charging, everybody piles in, they're just all dead, you know, and it just completely wipes them out. And that's because, you know, in bronze, you know, if you can move first, if you can get there first, they're not going to have the response to then turn around and stop you. So it's one of the things that, okay, if you've warded well, you know, you've got to ward up sort of up in their jungle so you can see them coming. You can see it's just one. You know, as soon as they get within range of you, you just go bam, and you hit them, you know, and you hit them hard all at once. There's just no way they can respond to that because, you know, and that, you know, and that's where the pre-planning comes in, because if you've decided ahead of time to do that, then it will happen because you're already geared to do it. You're not thinking, am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? You know, because low-level players need that time to kind of wind up to what's actually happening because we're not, you know, we're not master tier, we're not challenger. So our reflexes, our thinking is not at the same level. So yeah, seizing that initiative, killing that jungler, and then going back to the dragon. And heck, even if you don't take the dragon, even if you just, you know, if you kill one or two people, but you're too low to take the dragon, leave the dragon, come back. You've just got 2 kills. You're going to go back to the dragon. You know, if you've warded well, if, you know, and in those fights, they're not going to clear your wards. You know, your wards are still there. You're still ready to dragon. You're still baiting them. They come back. If they're not, you know, if they do it right at this time, kill them again. It's more free kills. So it's one of those things that's, yeah, like...
The thing about if you base as well, you're going to come... Like, if you've just won the fight and you initiated on Dragon, you would have probably just come from lane as well, which means that you would have already been harassed down. And you come back into that Dragon immediately after basing, and you're full health again.
Yeah.
1, you've denied your enemy golden XP because they died and they weren't in lane. 2, you're now full health. You're now full mana. You have had time to refresh all of your lower cooldowns. If you don't have an ultimate, and they do, think about that a little bit more. Maybe go back to the lane, play for that timing again as soon as you know, especially for somebody like Leona. You know, we require that ultimate. Go back to lane, get that first, maybe get a little bit more XP. The other thing is, you know, when you come back into that fight, you've got the kills, you've got the gold on them, you've got more stats, you've got also more XP, so you could potentially be a higher level. So you're going to have, therefore, more basic stats just from you know, leveling. So it's not, we won the fight, we need to take drag there and then. Yeah. It's, we won the fight, we took drag, are we of high enough health to now go do drag? Yes, no, that's fine. And when there's no threat as well, you need less people to do dragon as well. So, you know, if your support's got 50 health, don't go to the dragon.
Yeah,
do not do that. Just go base. Maybe your Sejuani and your Caitlyn can do the dragon without you. Do they have enough damage? Yeah, they'll probably have enough damage because it's Sejuani Caitlyn, so.
Yeah.
Or, alternatively, can you get a tower instead?
Yeah.
Towers are more efficient. Yeah. Towers will give you better control over that dragon pit as well.
And towers are also easy to kill as well, generally speaking, because they're not, I mean, you know, if you've got the minions there, they're not shooting at you, where a dragon is always attacking you. Like, you can't, you know, unless you're playing, I guess, Malzahar or Shaco or something, you know, you're going to be taking the damage, not something else. So, you know, that's another thing. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of this ties into, like, good warding as well. So if you're a support, you need to be thinking about this. Like, it's not a luxury. It is an essential part of what you're doing. You know, level 9, you know, like, as soon as you get... Heck, even these days, what happens if I haven't even get my Sightstone and First back, I'll buy my Ruby Crystal, I'll buy a single ward, and then I'll switch to a sweeper. Like, basically, with my First back, I'll get a sweeper. Because, you know, by the time I've used that one ward that I've got, and, you know, probably the trinket of my marksman, by the time I go back, I'll have the extra 400, I'll be able to get my Sightstone. So, you know, you get to get that sweeper sooner, and then as soon as you get level 9, upgrade it. Like, you really need that upgraded sweeper, because that gives you the vision control that you need to really seize these barons, and these dragons. Cool. And that's my little rant on warding and vision, because... You can never have your sweeper too early. There's no time that's too early to get a sweeper. Except level 1. That is too early.
Well, you don't have the gold for it at level 1, so...
Let's get to... Alright. Well, I guess... Is there anything else you guys want to add before we finish on that topic?
Not really. We covered it pretty good, I think.
Alright. Well, because we're moving away from the OPL, you know, OPL's finished for this split. It's yet to gear up for the next one. If you have any discussion topics that you want to talk about... let us know. OzLoL podcast at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, any of that sort of thing, hit us up personally. On the stream, you can see our Twitter handles. You can message us in-game, OzLoL chat room, in the client, TeamSpeak, whatever. Get a hold of us, let us know. We want to talk about what you want to talk about. And make sure you also check out our other show, the other sister shows, because there's things they cover that we just can't. So, like Trinity Force Proper, they do PBE stuff, because they don't do OPL. They don't talk about the professional side of things. Obviously, we don't talk about LCS rundown, and there's lots of basic stuff that we just don't have the time to cover. So, forwards, and make sure you check out all the other shows. And Steve, you had a shout out before we finished?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Scrub Phoenix, whose name's been brought up a few times on the podcast previously in battle arenas, many, many times. He's actually created a new organization called NT Esports, and that's what you would imagine, esports in the Northern Territory. So if you are in the Northern Territory or you have League enthusiastic friends in the territory, just get them to check out the Facebook group or message me in game. I am Player. And yeah, we'll get you the info for that because it's coming along quite well, and he's putting in a lot of effort for it.
Cool, awesome. All right, well, this has been episode 84 of OzLoL Podcast. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again next week.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.